Hello and welcome back to my channel if this is your first time here. Hi, I'm Cassidys. If it's not, thanks for always tuning into my videos. This year I followed along a lot with a competition called SPFBO, or Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off, which is a blog off hosted by Mark Lawrence for indie fantasy books. I have a whole video on my channel that I will link down in the description bar below that goes over what exactly SPFBO is and how all the rules start. This was SPFBO 8. I read a lot of the participants, and then when the finalists came out, I got 9 other people, which with me makes 10 people, to do my own kind of version of the competition, the finalist scoreboard, and I called it SPFBO Cassidys version. A play on, the Taylor Swift thing with, all Taylor's version. We got to see differences in opinions like crazy. I thought it was really fun to follow along this year and see how my Cassidys version scoreboard looked very different than the official version, and it was just fun to see that tastes change and reading is very subjective. I'll link down below the website to the official competition for you, as well as Cassidys version, and I hope that you peruse both of those because I do think it was very fun to see some of the differences. The winner of the official competition was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, which I do think was a overall loved book between the official competition and Cassidys version. We had a few people in mind that didn't love it, which is why it didn't end up winning, but it did place second in Cassidys version, and I definitely think that this is such a fun book to pick up. If you're not, it is cozy fantasy and has a romance and has a gimmick of footnotes, and I definitely say avoid the audio. The footnotes are a little annoying in the audiobook, but the physical read was really enjoyable, and I actually do think that there was a correlation for people who read the audiobook versus physical and their differences in opinions, which I thought was kind of interesting. But our winner for Cassidys version was A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah, which I'm very happy with because it is my favorite book that I read last year. So of course I was so excited when everyone else was loving this and it was winning. I'm kind of shocked. Some of the reviewers do have similar taste as me, and then some of them were very different and hadn't dived into fantasy that much, and I thought this was going to be less accessible to the Cassidys version's participants who weren't as big on epic fantasy, weren't as well versed, but it turned out that they really enjoyed it. So yeah, just so everyone knows, A Touch of Light did win with an 8.2 and Small Miracles was a close second with a 7.4, and I do think both of these are incredible books. All 10 of these finalists are incredible books, but I did just want to shout out A Touch of Light for winning before I get into the real purpose of this video, and I thought what an amazing way to showcase some of these amazing reads that we had by asking my participants if they wanted to be on camera to share with me their favorite reading experience of the competition. So it doesn't have to be the one they gave the highest score to, which most of the time with A Touch of Light, it just has to be the one that they had the greatest experience for. I'm gonna let all of my co-hosts talk to you first, and then I'm gonna come back at the end and tell you some of my thoughts, my favorite reading experience, and then also some of the books that I really enjoyed that I read that were in the competition but didn't make it to the finals. So take it from here, whoever I'm gonna put in.
Hi, I'm Kaylee from Kaylee's Books, and I think my favorite part of reading all the SPFBO finalists was definitely getting a new favorite book out of it. A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah was literally one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. I had so much fun with this book, and I read it through audio and physically. I kind of mixed the two, and I just think it's such a nice experience. So I so highly recommend this book, both the physical book and the audio book. I think Tiago is a new favorite author of mine. I've also now read the novella, and I'm really excited to read the second book in the series, The Shade of Madness, so it's just so exciting to find a new favorite fantasy series. But I also want to give a quick shout out to Umbral Storm as well, because that was my number 2 book of the SPFBO finalists, and Umbral Storm was such a fun, entertaining time. I don't think it was as technically strong as A Touch of Light, hence why A Touch of Light is by far my winner. However, I do think Umbral Storm was just such a wild, fun, chaotic ride, and I loved every moment of it. I mean, the opening with the dramatic tree crab scene hooked me right away, and I was hooked the entire story. So I also am excited to continue on with the series of Umbral Storm and also check out this author's backlist. So overall, I am super, super excited to have found 2 new authors that I'm going to be following.
Hi everyone, my name is Kristen from the channel Kristen Craves Books, and I just want to thank Cassidy for asking me to join her on this project. There were some highs and there were some lows, but I'm so glad that I did it because it pushed me out of my comfort zone when it comes to fantasy. And I don't think I ever would have picked up this book that I'm going to talk about today without doing this project, so that alone makes me happy that I did it. And this is Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson. This was not the most popular book amongst the other people in this project, and I think every criticism I have heard from them is valid, is fair. I agree with it, but I loved this book. I keep saying this, but I think that this book is for a very specific audience, and that audience just happens to be me. I love that our character Mildred is in her 40s. She is unmarried in this historical fantasy world, and she is kind of just put into this situation where she has no choice but to save this dragon, and she doesn't change too much. She has character development, but she's not a completely new character by the end, and I really appreciated that. I think you have to read the first chapter to see if you connect with the writing, because it's a very specific tone that I think works for this story, but if you don't click with it in the first chapter, it's not worth reading. And I also think that the villain was a little bit over the top and stereotypical, but I still appreciated it. I don't know, it just all worked for me. I don't know what to tell you. It's just my perfect kind of book, and as soon as I finished it, I bought the sequel. Can't wait to see where the story goes from here. So thanks again, Cassidy. If you like cozy historical fantasy, or you know me and you have similar reading tastes, I would recommend trying this, but again, read the first chapter to see if you click with it.
Hey everybody, it's Mel. Thanks again, Cassidy, so much for allowing me to be part of the Cassidys version of SPFBO. I had such a wonderful time doing this. There were quite a few wins for me during this and quite a few duds, but I think that there are two that I definitely want to bring everybody's attention to and say that if you are an epic fantasy reader that loves expansive worlds and really cool magic systems, then I definitely recommend giving these two a try. The first, obviously, is A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah. This drops you in. It doesn't really give you a lot to go on. You've just got to be along for the ride, and what a ride it was. This has a great magic system, a really cool plot involving magical zombies, and great characters as well. And the other one I want to bring your attention to is The Umbral Storm by Alec Hudson. This is not a short book, but I loved my time with it. I thought that the magic system and the setting were super cool. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on, and it made me really excited to read more from this author in the future. So again, thank you so much, Cassidy, for inviting me to be a part of this. It was so much fun, and I can't wait to see what wins.
Hi, I'm Maria from the channel Maria Might Read That, and a big thank you to Cassidy for asking me to be a part of the first ever SPFBO Cassidys version. I had a lot of fun seeing how my expectations were completely flipped upside down, and then it was so much fun to compare our scores and see how our groups rated things differently compared to the official competition as well. Cassidy asked us to talk about our favorite reading experiences, and I'm going to briefly talk about three because they all stand out to me in different ways. First up, I've got Mysterious Ways by Abby Evans. I'm a very character-driven reader, and of all 10 books that I read, this one had the most compelling, most relatable, realistic characters for me. They were the ones that I was the most invested in and was genuinely emotional about when different obstacles would come their way. This book has a really great sapphic relationship full of lots of banter. We get to see different angels and demons and kind of creative ways of approaching those and different realms. I thought there was a lot to it that was just really unique and creative and had me absolutely hooked. It had really great humor. There were so many moments where I laughed out loud. I won't pretend that it's a perfect book. I definitely think there's a lot of ideas in there that could have been expanded on, and it might not have the best ending for plot-driven readers, but there was a lot in it that just had me excited for more, and I can't wait to pick up more books by this author. I also have to mention Scales and Sensibility by Stephanie Burgess. This book, although it might not have gotten the highest technical scores for me in some areas, it was the highest enjoyment score I gave out. I really just had an absolute blast reading it. It's a Jane Austen-inspired Regency rom-com with pet lap dragons, societal hijinks, and an apologetically over-the-top story. I do think it leaned into that setup a little bit too much maybe, so some of the characters were kind of a one-note exaggerated version of themselves, and there were some plot conveniences, but at the end of the day, none of that really hindered my enjoyment. I flew through this, I found the love story really compelling, and just had a really great time with this. It's definitely one that I would recommend if you just want a fun, page-turning read. A big thank you again to Cassidy for asking me to participate in this, and a huge congratulations to the official SPFBO winner, which is Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater, and of course to the rest of the finalists.
Hello, my name is Sandra from God of Fifth of Things. I want to say thank you so much for Cassidy for bringing me on to the SPFBO team this year. I had a great time. I really enjoyed reading many kinds of different books I otherwise maybe wouldn't have found or picked up. Definitely because I think the self-published fantasy genre is very overwhelming, so I had a really great time being part of SPFBO in general. While I gave Small Miracles the highest score in like the rubric thing, and I definitely enjoyed it so much, and I won't forget it anytime soon, I think my personal favorite was The Umbral Storm, which I like absolutely loved. I just loved all aspects of the story and how that story dragged me in. So I very much recommend that still, and I really want to read the sequel, get a physical copy, etc. whenever I get to that. I feel like I found like new favorites in this, which not necessarily shocked me, but it was really great. Like some of them I think I will forget and like be like, oh, it was an okay book, but there were some that really stuck with me, like The Umbral Storm and Small Miracles. It's a really great time, really great people, and again, thank you so much for Cassidy for having me a part of this, and go and read The Umbral Storm.
Hello everybody, my name is Brianna. I'm from the channel 4 Paws in a Book, and I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of SPFBO Cassidys version. All of these books were pretty much outside of my comfort zone, and so this was a wonderful opportunity as a fantasy newbie, a newbie to the genre, to, you know, dive in head first. I want to talk about 2 books that really like skyrocketed to favorites of the year, and ones that I'm really excited that I read and may not have picked up outside of this competition. So very thankful for that. The first one I'm not going to spend a ton of time on because I'm sure that everyone is going to be talking about this book, but that is A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah. I had my reservations about this book, but it really showed me what I really did and, you know, kind of didn't like in fantasy, and it kind of helped me to further that roadmap on like finding the perfect buzzwords for fantasy. So I'm very thankful for this one. But the one that is by far my favorite in this competition and will likely end up on my favorite books of the year is Small Miracles. This book was just perfect for me, which is weird because the like whimsical type fantasy books that I've read since reading this, I have not loved. So I don't know what this says about this book. I think I'm more confused about my genre taste than ever after reading this, but this may have just been a perfect time for me to read this. It was the right time at right place. This is such good representation of gender fluidity and queerness and the just like being authentically you, whatever that might be on any given day. And I do think that this is just such a wholesome book. Did it have the biggest, most epic plot? No. This is this year's Hug in a Book for me, and there's very little that I can say about this book that would be negative, but I'm also just gushing about this book at this point anyways. I think this spoke to a lot of people that even though they may not normally like cozy fantasy, this one might still work for people. Obviously, this was my favorite book of this competition, and I highly recommend that everyone pick it up. Thank you, Cassidy, and to all of the other hosts. I had such a fun time talking about these books with you guys.
Hi, I'm Rachel, also known as Argent Rave. You don't hear from me much, but thanks to Cassidy for inviting me to take part of SPFBO's Cassidys version. I had a lot of fun taking part of this event, reading the 10 finalists from SPFBO 8, and there were some ups and downs, and ones that I expected to love, such as Touch of Light, which I did really enjoy, but there was one that had the biggest impact on me, and had the best reading experience. And you can probably guess, it was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. In the beginning, I thought I would have hated this book. It didn't appeal to me whatsoever. But in the end, it was my favorite. It made me laugh, I had a great time with the footnotes, and I gave it a 9, which is one of the 2 in the competition. So, what did I learn? Don't judge a book by its cover? Maybe. Also, I am soft. Anyways, I hope everyone had a great time taking part in this experiment with us and the 9 other participants. And everyone should keep reading.
Editing Cassidy here to tell you that Dom did make a video, but I done goofed and didn't download it before the expiry date. Sorry, Dom. And so he no longer has access to that footage, so sadly he doesn't have a clip to be in this, but I can tell you that his favorite book was Fire the Forebears, and also that he has a whole video on his channel where he goes over the 10 finalists and his thoughts, so you should just go check that one out. Also, Deb was a part of this, but she is a busy bee and runs a Bookstagram account and a book blog, so you should go check out her thoughts as well.
now back to me.
I feel like no one actually ended up talking about A Touch of Light because we all thought everyone else was going to talk about it. So here I am just to rave about this book. This was by far my best experience in SPFBO. I adored the writing structure of this. I am someone who often predicts things in fantasy, so sometimes I like to be a little bit confused. Only sometimes. And I think that this is why this story really worked for me, is that I could never guess exactly where we were going, because the way that Thiago just dumps you into the story made me have such an intriguing experience while reading it, because I always wanted to figure things out. There was always some sort of mysterious element that I hadn't quite grasped yet and that I was just like reaching for. Like, I wanted to know more about this. But we didn't get all the answers in book 1, and I do know a couple people complained about that, but it is a 4-book long series, so of course we're not getting all the answers in book 1, and I think you just have to be along for the ride. We follow 3 characters in this, and I personally really enjoyed the characters. I think we had 3 different characters, which was fun, because if you didn't like one, you could like the other 2, or if you liked one, you could not like the other one, and I think that made for a better reading experience for some of the newer people, where they had at least one character that they could really grasp on instead of 3 similar characters. Anyways, I'm just going off about this. I really enjoyed this story. We're following the world in this where there is a plague. It's turning people into zombies, and we follow our 3 characters who have to kind of like figure out why this is happening and stop it. We have Adrian, who is the second son to the current king. When his brother dies, he kind of has to live up to his father's expectations that he had for his brother. And then we have Nasha, who lives in the clans, and she has a curse in which she can feel everyone's emotions, and sometimes this overwhelms her and she feels like killing people. And then we also have Lynn, who is a retired mercenary who has this magical ability, and I will also say that there are a little bit of griffins in this one. And I just hope that more people read this. I really enjoyed my time reading this. And I am blurbed on the second book, which is out yet, but I haven't read yet. So if you're looking for a Covers with Cassie recommendation, this is the only book in the world that literally has a quote from me so far as a blurb. So you should probably read it. In terms of finalists, I also really enjoyed The Umbral Storm and Tethered Spirits. These are both just like really fun reads for me. I found an author that I cannot wait to continue reading more from in Alec Hudson. I just really enjoyed the fun world building that was in this and had one heck of a time. I will link my vlogs down below to my reading experiences during these so that you can know more about them. If you're looking for just like a fun time book, Umbral Storm I think is the way to go. But another reading experience I really enjoyed was actually Tethered Spirits, which I don't think scored as well with some of my friends. But there's something about the plotline and the deeper conversations that we had in this book that I really enjoyed. I also currently have the sequel to this book and I can't wait to read it. This is a YA story, so I think it is a little bit more accessible than this or A Touch of Light, but I had fun with this one just like in The Umbral Storm, and I think that's what made it a really good experience for me. And along the way, before we got to the finalists, I did have some vlogs go up where I read just like submissions in SPFBO, and one of the ones that I read and I continually talk about all the time, yet no one picks it up and I don't know why, is Nomads of the Sea by Kobe Zucker. This didn't quite make it to the finalists. It almost was a semi-finalist, but was beaten out by A Grimdark, which I actually own and have not read yet. It was beaten out by The Witch Hunter, which is a grimdark, and I think size might have had something to do with it. But Nomads of the Sea was honestly my second favorite reading experience of the entire SPFBO competition. I had a really good time reading this and I keep thinking about it. Another one that I read a long time ago, I read it not for SPFBO technically. This was the first book I was ever sent by the author, and I will forever thank Holly Carlson for taking a chance on me as a reviewer. And I mean, I didn't love this book, but I actually now recommend it to a lot more people, as I do think that it's a really strong YA fantasy and it has a really cool magic system in it. And then the other one that I really loved that I read early on was A King's Radiance, and I just really enjoyed the magic system in this. We have a sun magic system, so when people hang out in the sun, it like powers them up, and then they have to like burn the energy out of them. And they can learn to control this, but it still affects them. Like sometimes they'll be left with like burn marks wherever the energy like came out of them. And I thought that was a really fun magic system and I really enjoyed it. Those were some of my favorite reads of like the entire SPFBO competition, because none of those became finalists. Although Kingdom of Essence was a semi-finalist for one blog. But anyways, I just wanted to say thank you all for following along on the SPFBO journey with me. This was the first time that I followed SPFBO so closely. I just kind of like looked at it in passing before, and I'm excited to follow it again next year. I haven't decided quite yet if SPFBO Cassidys version is going to be back, but I do know that I do plan on reading a lot of the submissions again this year, and I personally plan on reading a lot of the finalists. I am stoked to see what makes it. I'm just very excited to follow the competition again this year. If you are an indie author, make sure to check out Mark Lawrence's website. I think it opens on May 17th for SPFBO 9, and last year it filled out in like 7 hours, so make sure to get your submissions in there quick because it is just like first come first serve, first 300 people. But anyways, thank you so much. Thank you to all of my other friends and booktubers and bookstagrammers for participating in SPFBO Cassidys version. I hope that you enjoyed your time. If you read a SPFBO book, let me know what your favorite experience was. Let me know if there's a book that you're interested in that you saw on this list. And then if you'd like to just leave an emoji to say you were here, leave me a money emoji. I have to interrupt here because about 5 days after filming this clip, this video, I got a message from Mark Lawrence, and he asked me if I was willing to be a judge for SPFBO 9. So you're looking at the official newest, well, not newest, there's a couple new people, but one of the newest judges for SPFBO 9. I will be officially joining the competition next year, which does mean there won't be a Cassidys version, but it means you get to see all my thoughts in the official version, and I have a say at the actual winner, which is just pretty cool. I will have a team joining underneath me for phase 1. I kind of am doing it similar to how Bookborn did it, but I will have a video coming probably the first week of June introducing my team and the books they will be reviewing and how I am running it. And I'm just really excited for that. I will say that all of my team were people that helped me with SPFBO Cassidys version, so you definitely should just follow all of these people as they're incredible. But yeah, I'm now officially a judge for next year's. Look at that, SPFBO 9. And then if you'd like to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my Book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are all linked in the description bar below. Have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.